we're here for our webinar. Our first webinar, you'll recognize Chris Johnson from Lawyers for the Creative Arts. Wonderful legal support staff that we've got on this. And of course, we have Kristen, our wonderful ASL interpreter over here for those who need it. I want to do a little bit of level setting. One, this webinar is specifically going to be looking at the application, and Sasha is going to be walking us all through the application. If you haven't, if this is this is only for the arts program. So this is for B2B Arts, also known as the Illinois Creative Recovery Grants. If you are a restaurant or a hotel, get out of here. No, but you have your own webinars and community navigators for you. This is specifically for the arts sector and specifically for the arts program. The Arts Alliance is acting as a community navigator, but just to be clear, this is a grant program that is being administered by the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So we are not actually the ones making decisions on eligibility. We are not the ones that are actually making changes to FAQs or managing the grant portal itself. We are on your side of things. So we are here to be your advocates. We're also here to make sure that your questions get answered as quickly and thoroughly, as Sasha said, as possible. We know some folks have had trouble getting answers directly from the Submittable platform when they've submitted questions through that. So just so you know, our help desk is separate. So if you haven't already visited our help desk, I'll drop the link in the chat here in a bit. Highly recommend, if you have specific questions, that is the place to go. We've also had some folks concerned that our help desk is secretly run by robots and is just an AI situation. That is not true. It is all warm-blooded humans that are receiving your questions and formulating the responses and working on getting you all of the information you need. So please, please, please utilize that help desk. It's a really, really great resource. A couple things about how to use this Q&A. We are still going to be taking questions in the Q&A and get to ones that we can. You'll see in the Q&A box, there is an option. If you see a question, there's a little thumbs up, and you can like questions. If you see a question that you also have, throw a like on it, and that'll help us prioritize which questions the most people on the call have. And just one more caveat there, again, there may be questions that we don't know the answer to, but we are your best resource for getting those answers quickly. So if we don't get to your answer here, please hop into our help desk, get into our system there. We've got teams to also provide one-on-one support if you need somebody to help you with any particular question, or if you just need someone to help you get through and finish the application. We are here to support you. One note that came up early on, but to flag it, we are going to be having a couple more webinars. One of those will be an accounting specific webinar. We know that there's a lot of questions on the accounting side, and unfortunately there aren't, a lot of those questions will depend on your specific circumstance. Because sole proprietors, LLCs, partnership, nonprofits, for-profits, because there's really broad eligibility for this program, a lot of things have really specific answers depending on how your business is set up. With that, one last plug for Arts Alliance. We are a membership organization, and we are the THE statewide arts advocacy organization. We are going to be having our statewide conference, One State, at the end of this month. This is the last week to sign up for register for that. Check it out on our website. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to Springfield, and on Tuesday, so on Monday will be the conference. On Tuesday will be a Capitol Day. We'll be rallying at the Capitol to advocate for more arts funding. And so you all know, this $50 million that exists through this grant program exists because of advocacy efforts. We led a statewide coalition last year to get this legislation passed, to get these dollars. And now we're working as a community navigator to make sure that these dollars get in your pockets. With that, I'm going to go and drop a bunch of links in the chat. I'm going to toss it over to Sasha to start our application walkthrough.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Casey. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to share my screen right now. Welcome to our application walkthrough. So where I'm going to start off is where to find the application. And actually, I'll level set a little bit further. As I go through this application, I'm going with the assumption that many of you on this webinar have already attended either a previous webinar or have seen some of this eligibility criteria for the B2B Arts grant, maybe seen some FAQs, but the application portal went live last Wednesday, and you're here because you'd like to see the application again, or you haven't seen it for the first time and need to walk through. DCEO did a webinar last Thursday doing the exact same thing, and we're just waiting on that recording to be posted on their website. What you see on my screen is DCEO's website. So the webinars that they are hosting are posted here. When you scroll to the bottom, you'll see the link to the application. When you click on this, as well as on Arts Alliance's, our Creative Recovery website, that's on Arts Alliance's website, we have the application link there. When you click on that link, you'll be taken to the Community Development Fund landing page. And this is the portal for B2B grants. And there's one for each. We're going to click on Arts because that is what we're going through today. Oops, there is that. That is the FAQs, all of your eligibility criteria, everything is in a separate window provided by Submittable, which is the platform that is hosting this application form. What I'm actually going to do is when you get to this landing page, you will see B2B Arts guidelines and FAQs here as a link, and then apply now is where you would go next. Once we're in, you're going to have to create an account, your Submittable account. I've already created one, so I'm going to go in. Now, what I want to actually address up front, which was not done on DCEO's webinar, but it's since come up as an issue. And the reason I'm going to start with this now is because I know there are a lot of nonprofits on this call, and there is, we'll get to it at the end of this form, but there is a specific question that asks about uploading your IDs and having someone from your organization, your nonprofit, that is the lead executive or the board chair whose ID needs to be uploaded, and subsequent questions and other identifying information that needs to be provided on the form. And what we have heard from individuals already is that if you are completing the application on behalf of the organization and you are not the CEO or ED or the board chair, you're literally applying, I would recommend at this time to perhaps create an account on behalf of your lead executive or your board chair, just because there have been issues to actually upload and be able to answer some qualifying questions later. And so I'll get to that, but I want to make that clear up front that because of the unique nonprofit situation where you have development and fundraising individuals that are likely the people applying to this grant, but need to also include ID and identifying information for an executive director or board chair, there's already been sort of issues with doing that. And the way we've been able to see ways to circumvent that is to actually create the Submittable account in their name and then add yourself as the collaborator. So I'll get to that. You're going to create your Submittable account. And now I'm in the B2B Arts program overview. You'll see at the start there is sort of some introductory information, a program interview, and a link to the frequently asked questions here. When we get to this section, you have, again, information on the submittable email address that will be from whom you will get correspondence about information, awardees, and notifications following the closing of the application period. There is a section here about collaborators that you can add to the form to help complete the form. And so again, with the collaborator function, what you'll want to do is click on Manage Collaborators, and then you can enter email addresses for each collaborator that you would want to help work along. They would be able to work alongside you to complete the application. And again, if you are a development professional or completing this application for a nonprofit and are not the executive director or board chair, you may want to instead create your Submittable account in their name and then add yourself here as a collaborator to be able to actually complete the application on their behalf, but assign ownership of the application to your board executive. And that would help prevent some issues further down in the form that you'll see when we get there. Once you add that email address, your invited collaborator will receive an email, and then they'll be able, again, to come into this form and answer questions alongside. Collaborators cannot turn in the application. Only the original applicant can do that themselves, or whoever is like owning this application based on the submittable account you created. But again, if you're a collaborator, you can answer all these questions. And then you would just need to kind of hand it back to whoever is going to be submitting it to actually fully submit the application. Again, for nonprofits, if you're a sole proprietor, if you're another business entity, you would go ahead and just apply as you would as the owner and the applicant for your grant. So next, we get to the required documents. And so actually, before we get to required documents, I want to take note again, there's an FAQ link here, and then there's this email address that you can reach out to for assistance with the Submittable team. This is sort of like their first frontline. This is the front line to receive initial questions that you're encountering on this form. That email address is meant to provide support for technical issues with the form, as well as programmatic issues. I would still, though, highly recommend for any programmatic eligibility questions, any questions like kind of that fall on this form that you know are unique to your situation, I would please contact our help desk, and you'll get more dedicated support. Plus, this email address is supporting, my understanding, 2 other B2B programs. So I imagine they're slammed. And we want to be able to support and answer the questions for those who are in our sector as quickly as possible. So please visit our help desk. Next, identification. Required documents that are listed here more for gathering purposes. So you'll see your federal employer identification number, social security number, ITIN number, valid government photo issued ID, your business or nonprofit organization tax returns for 2019, 2020, and 2021. If you are a fiscal year operating organization, know that the forms that you're going to want to provide are for your fiscal year ending in 2019, ending in 2020, and ending in 2021, which likely means you're going to be submitting your tax forms with label. So for 2019, it'll likely be your 2018 990 for the fiscal year ending in 2019. For 2020, it'll be your 2019 tax form or 990 form, which would be for the tax year ending or fiscal year ending 2020. That's been a common question, and I want to just clear that out right now, that is what forms you'll want to be submitting. And then there's a work sample or programming document that you'll also be uploading or entering a link for. When we get to that section, I'll speak more to that. Next, we have the business organization information. So you'll want to enter here your business or organization's legal name. Please note that This is again a grant for organizations and businesses, sole proprietors who are registered in the state of Illinois. We've had a common question about nonprofits or organizations and businesses who are registered outside of Illinois, including our valued organizations that provide so much programming in Illinois, but are technically located outside of Illinois. As we have understood from DCEO, their ruling is that you would not be eligible to apply to this grant if you are not registered in the state of Illinois. I want to be clear about that. And if you have questions about where you're registered and where you're operating now, or you're working remotely, come to the help desk and we will help sort through your unique situation. Under here, you'll also see, has this business operated using a different name? Click whatever option applies to you. I know that there are questions about individual sole proprietorships that have then transitioned into an LLC or into a nonprofit 501c3 within the years in question. They started as one entity structure in 2019. They were an LLC, they were a sole proprietor in 2019. And then in 2020, they applied to be an S Corp, doing the same business activities. They just changed their structure. Know that you are eligible to apply, but you'll want to account for that and just make note if you changed your name, or if your business was a previous name different from what you are today, and you'll list the previous names here. When it says I operate as, for question 3, I operate as a, just select your entity as it's structured today. Are you today an LLC? Are you today a sole proprietor? Are you today a nonprofit? And if at the beginning in 2019 you were something different, you'll have a chance to acknowledge that later in the form. But you are applying to this as what you are in what your current status as a business is. And then you will.
Sorry. I just want to jump in there because we had one quick question in the chat from Abina. I may be mispronouncing your name. I apologize. You said you just registered as an LLC and are asking if you can use your personal tax returns since you just registered this year. You do have to have been in operation from March 12th, 2020 to be eligible for this, but you may have been operating as a sole proprietor for 2020, even though you only just registered as an LLC. So I would definitely recommend going to our help desk, and they can actually look at your tax returns and help you see if you're eligible.
Thank you, Casey. Since I'm sharing my screen, I have no visibility to the questions. So I definitely appreciate the support of our other Arts Alliance team members to jump in. I will not at all be offended. Please do. Right now I'm clicking this. I'm going to go ahead and click on this question as if I'm a sole proprietor, but I'm going to take an opportunity here just to showcase to all of you who haven't yet seen this form that it is a dynamic form, meaning depending on how you respond to certain questions will then indicate, or it will curate the next set of questions that you respond to according to how you answered a previous question. So just know that there's certain information that won't necessarily show up on your screen depending on how you click and how you respond to certain questions. For right now, I'm going to click on sole proprietor, and then I can absolutely go back and change the setting. I will go back, in fact, and change the setting to nonprofit, since that's where we see the most differentiation in question types that show up later. So if I'm a sole proprietor, I'll go ahead and I'll have a chance to enter my tax identification number. That can be, again, my social security number. If there is another EIN number that you have, again, you'll just enter that number here. And again, that's your current tax ID number. Next, there's a question about DUNS, the DUNS number. This is an optional question. DUNS numbers are, as we've understood, is meant, they're using that as another business identifier, but it's not a required question to answer. So if this doesn't apply, or you're just not sure what your DUNS number is, or if you've ever, if you have one, you can skip it. DCEO, as we know, is just using it as another business identifying question, a business identifier. And there is a link here if you want to search for yours. Next, business organization and mailing address. You will, again, complete this information for your business. Again, you have to be registered in the state of Illinois. Do you operate, for question 7, do you operate out of an address that is different from your business address? Again, you may have been registered in, you may have a registration address when you incorporated, but now you operate, in a completely different address. If that's the case, then you'll say yes and answer your physical location, answer those physical questions. If not, you click no and they disappear. Next question, and we've gotten several of these in the help desk, is to select your sector, your NAICS code category. And again, these codes, these NAICS codes there's a drop down here for the NAICS codes that would be, that DCEO at this point in time has felt would include different categorical numbers, different categories of business organizations that might also connect to any one of your organizations. It is a dynamic sort of drop down. So if I click on, if my business NAICS code, which I'll explain where you can find those currently, but let's just say you're choosing your NAICS code, which is, again, a code that's helping DCEO understand what your business does. You'll click on the appropriate sort of NAICS code. The way the numbers are formulated is there's like the initial 2 numbers, and then the remaining, like the numbers that follow that are subcategories will also pre-fill in the next drop down 8A. So you'll see, like, if I click on 21 mining, then all of the NAICS codes that are just starting with 21 mining will show up.
Could we show an example that is in the arts section?
Yeah. So here
there we are. There we are.
Let's go here. So what do we have here? We
Sorry
want
to all the miners on the call here.
Oh yeah, these miners, these creative miners. Arts, entertainment, and recreation. So we are going to go ahead and assume that most of us likely fall into, especially for sole proprietor, into the 71 category. And then from there, you will see an 8A, all the other, like the subcategories. So theater, dance, musical groups and artists, sports teams and clubs, because this is arts, entertainment, and recreation. Independent artists, museums. So you'll see that here. You can search for your NAICS codes on, there's a website that lists that here. But I want to note, because it's not on the application form, but you can find your NAICS code on your tax forms. So if you are a sole proprietor, you'll need your Schedule C, you'll need your Form 1040 and the Schedule C. And on the Schedule C, here we go, here's a screenshot of it, the Schedule C. Your NAICS code is box B. So if you completed your taxes these past, 2019 through 2021, or your accountant filled that out, there should be a number here, and you can use that number. And in fact, DCEO has requested that if possible, to have the number that you enter on your form, on your application form, match the number that's on your tax forms, unless you look at that number and you look it up you look up what the number is and you're like, that is so way off. That is not what my business does. I don't even know why it's on there. It happens. And if there's a mismatch in the codes between what you enter on your form and what's on your tax forms, that will not rule you out of eligibility. That will not rule you out from the application process or being DCEO. Like, it won't impact your eligibility in that case. It's really meant to help DCEO understand what your business does and almost verify more what your organization what your organization does and that it aligns to the eligibility categories that are required to be eligible for this grant. So if you have any questions about that or need support in where to find your NAICS code on your IRS documents, those business codes are also available on the other forms, on the 1065, on like for those other forms, the NAICS codes are also, I just showed the one for this, for the sole proprietor because it's very clear as an example. We at the help desk can also help you identify your NAICS code. Question 9, you will select which of the categories your organization falls into. Again, we have 5. We do see that there's movie theaters listed here, but please note that on the eligibility criteria, on the FAQs, and anywhere else that B2B Arts is being promoted, the 5 categories are independent live venue operators, performing or presenting arts, arts education organizations, museums, and cultural heritage organizations. Movie theaters do also, they're eligible, but they're technically likely falling into performing and presenting arts. Next, you'll answer the question, what year did you start your business or organization? So you'll list that here. Again, in terms of eligibility, as you'll see in the next questions, you must have been in operation prior to March 12th, 2020. You must be currently in operation today. If you went out of business, you're not eligible currently for this grant. You must be, again, in operation here in state, registered in this state to be eligible. And then this question, 13, did you experience a loss in earned, contributed, or total revenue of at least $5,000 due to economic disruptions related to the COVID-19 pandemic? So for this question here, first of all, earned, contributed, or total revenue is language that's actually directed to nonprofits, because nonprofits have the option to show a decline in their revenue between 2019 and 2020, or 2019 and 2021 in these categories of earned, contributed, and total revenue. If you are a for-profit, you're just going to look at your total revenue, gross receipts. And again, the question is, did you experience a decline in revenue between 2019 and 2020, or 2019 and 2021? We've also gotten questions about, especially for sole proprietors, can we look at a combined 5,000 between 2019 and 2021? If I lost 2,500 and if I had a decline in revenue between 2019 and 2020, and then another 2,500 that I lost in decline in revenue from 2019 and 2021, when I look at gross receipts, combined it's 5,000. So can I apply? As we have understood from DCEO, it is not a cumulative combined 5,000. They are going to look specifically at a decrease in your revenues, your gross receipts between 2019 and 2020, or 2019 and 2021. If it's at least 5,000 for either of those years, you're eligible. You qualify for an award, provided that you meet all the other eligibility criteria. If you if you experienced a loss, like true loss, where you're looking at expenses, DCEO isn't looking like it. As far as we know, that's not what they're using in terms of determining if you qualify for an award. It's really focused on gross receipts. That being said, you're to upload later on in the application your entire tax forms. So just know that they will, there is opportunity for them to have sort of a more full picture of your situation, but know that they're literally going to focus on gross receipts. And I know that that has come up a lot because they keep the language about lost income, a loss. I experienced a loss in 2020. I experienced a loss in 2021. I made money in 2020. Is that okay? I made money in 2021. Like, whether you made or lost income does not, that's not what DCO is looking at. They're literally looking at your gross receipts and revenues. So I hope that clarifies some things for folks who are on this call. Next, business organization and background. Literally the things I just said. gross receipts is your business income before you subtract taxes and other expenses. So sort of the overall instructions are here of where you can find your gross receipts, which line on your tax form to refer to. It's all listed up here. For the following questions, 14 through 17, you're going to, again, respond. Again, I'm a sole proprietor right now in this form, so I think this is going to be a lot more for our LLCs and S Corps, C Corps, nonprofits. If you received the B2B grant in the first round or the big grant in the first round, you are still eligible to apply. If you received SVOG money, if you received EIDL money, if you received PPP money, if you received any COVID relief funds, you are eligible to apply to the B2B Arts grant. For B2B grant recipients from the first round or big grant recipients from the first round, the only caveat here and why you're clicking this is because you technically already got an award in 2020. And so DCEO is now going to focus on just the decline in revenue from 2019, the comparison of 2019 and 2021. 2020 won't be evaluated since that was already evaluated when you got your first award, your B2B or big grant. For any, again, of the other federal relief funding that you might have received, you're eligible. And our understanding is that likely because you've already received an award in 2020, DCEO may opt to only again look at 2019 and 2021 if you received a previous award. But again, it does not mean that you can't apply. Please apply. And then you're going to move into these questions, 15, 16, and 17, of what your gross receipts were for each. For sole proprietor, you're going to look at your Form 1040, Schedule C, line 1. And then for each of the other forms, again, it's indicated here which line items they're going to be looking at. You'll enter that number here. If you started your business in early 2020 before March 12th, you obviously won't have any gross receipts from 2019. You can enter 0 here. If you started towards the end of 2019, let's say like October 2019, you obviously don't have any revenue between January and October. You would still enter what your annual gross receipts were for 2019. But then I do have a tip. So you can flag to DCEO that you don't have a full year of annual gross receipts. So because DCEO recognizes that is a situation for certain businesses and organizations, what they've shared is that they will annualize this number that you enter in question 15 if you didn't have a full year of 2019 revenue, if your business launched in 2019. And there will be, I think, an opportunity or a place for you to further explain that or indicate to DCEO when you started so that they can accurately annualize that. The reason I say that, like accurately annualize it, is because in this previous question of when your business started, sorry that I'm like scrolling here. There's a question about when your business started, and all you can choose is the year. You're not able to choose here, question 10. You can't choose the month. So for anyone that started their business in 2019, like for DCEO to know what to annualize, they'll need to know what month you started, right? So I want to just name that. That has come up in questions at the help desk, and we recognize that, and so I'm addressing it right now on this webinar. You'll enter again 0 if you have no revenue for 2019. You'll enter whatever is still listed. If you do have your 2019 taxes, list that number, and then I'll show you where you can indicate that you don't have a full year for comparison. You'll do the same for 2020 and the same for 2021. And I think similarly, if you have 0 gross receipts for 2020, because literally as a sole proprietor, you did not work at all. Everything was shut down and you couldn't recover. You're also welcome to enter 0 here.
Sasha, we're getting a couple questions from folks who file the 990N, the postcard, asking about, and I do know that y'all will be eligible for the minimum amount. So for the $5,000, which is the minimum award amount, but they're asking about what they should use for the gross receipts line.
So
they file the postcard.
For the postcard, it's interesting. For the postcard, they are actually, let me go back here. I have to pull it up there. They do indicate in the FAQs what to input or what to use for the postcard. The thing about the postcard is that you have, I mean, technically you're eligible, like Casey said, for the minimum $5,000 award. I think if you did have the option to, if you as an organization also had the option to fill out a complete, like the more full form 990, and you want to actually submit that to show more of what your actual revenues were, like, because with the postcard, I don't think that's even the case. You can do that. You have the option to do that, but I would, you'd want to make sure that you have that 990 form fully completed now. I want to go through the rest of the form because of time, but for the 990, if I can find it, it literally says it in the FAQs, what line to refer to, or how to handle the postcard. I just apologize that I don't have it at the top of my head.
Yeah, it's totally fine. And just a reminder for folks, we are going to do an accounting specific. Jillian, our accounting whiz, is not on this webinar today. So we will be doing an accounting specific webinar, and we'll make sure all of you know that you can register that. And we'll get to some of these more specific questions.
Yeah, thanks everyone. You'd think I'd have this all memorized by now as our help desk manager, but it's so much information. So next section, financial documents. Here's where, because DCO is requiring every applicant to upload their appropriate tax filings and documents. So you'll see instructions here for, again, 2019, 2020, and 2021. The forms that you'll need based on what your business structure is listed here. And then for each of these questions, know that you can click on multiple options. This is valuable for any organization that did experience change in their business structure. So again, if you were a sole proprietor in 2019 and then registered as your S Corp in 2021, or and then for 2021, you would have technically you were for that year, you had 2 business structures. You might have for that year need to upload two separate tax filings. That again is an option. So you'll click on the appropriate boxes. I'm going to click on sole proprietor because I'm a sole proprietor in this form currently. And then I would have the option to upload, by clicking on this button, upload my tax documents. Accepted files are here. So photo files are here, PDF, Word doc. You can add an additional 15 files. So this is why this is important, everyone. If you have a unique situation, like I only opened in October, we were in operation October 2019. We don't have a full year of 2019 revenue. This is where I would upload your taxes and then take advantage of the fact that you can upload more documents and be able to upload a statement, upload something from your finance person to just describe what the situation, what happened, just to give DCO additional context. Definitely, you can do that for any of the subsequent years, for question 20 for 2020, for question 21. So if there's just additional information because of something unique that happened in that year for you, take advantage of the fact that you can add additional files to give more context. And that could literally be like a signed statement PDF, upload it just to give that information. Once you get through that, and actually, I'm wondering, I will go back. Actually, I'm going to go back right now. If you are a nonprofit, I just want to now switch this up. So if you're a nonprofit and you click on nonprofit, let me just get the dynamic. This experiences, yes. Okay. So now I'm a nonprofit. In terms of the financial documents that I can attach here, I'm going to, if I'm a nonprofit that experienced a decline of $5,000 or more, and my gross receipts for my organization total 50,000. Here it says, do the gross receipts for your organization total $50,000 or less? This $50,000 number is the number that determines whether you're eligible to apply to use the 990 e-postcard or not. Any organizations that have 50,000 in revenues or gross receipts or less are the ones eligible to do the e-postcard. For those that have more than 50,000 in revenues for any given year, answer no to this question. And then you will see for each question now, for each year 2019, you'll see 15A, you'll see additional line items in which you can enter your program service revenue, and then the specific line to find that on your 990. Your contributed and grant revenue, again, here's the line that you can refer to, as well as then your total annual gross receipts. That is because, again, for nonprofits, they have the option to establish their eligibility and a qualification for an award, not just on total receipts, but also for if you can establish that you had a decline in earned revenue or program revenue, in contributed revenue, or in total revenue, you can put all that information here, and then DCEO will go with the greatest number, the greatest decline, and use that in the calculation of your award. So I want to definitely just point that out. Now, and we got 10 minutes left. Moving into, this question here for nonprofits, question 18. Does your organization not have its own tax documents because you are fiscally sponsored or part of a larger nonprofit organization such as a private university? If you are a nonprofit and you are part of a larger entity, a parent organization, and you're fiscally sponsored, you're just a nonprofit, you don't have your 501c3 status, but you are fiscally, for whatever reason, you're fiscally sponsored, you're eligible still to apply. And if you are a nonprofit whose parent organization, if you're a nonprofit, but your parent organization is a public entity, you are likely not eligible. But if you are a nonprofit and part of a larger organization, you can submit your forms here. So you'll see when I click on yes, you're able to upload your profit and loss statement. And again, when you upload those documents, you want to ensure that it's reflecting that the activities of your business or that it's really showing the activities that fall under the eligibility categories for this grant. And there's a note here in case of venues, museums, or cultural orgs that are part of larger organizations. You want to, again, what I just said, provide those financial statements reflecting only the activities of the eligible entity. And they must be audited and have been approved by the parent organization board or senior leadership. So in this, when you upload, you'll also likely upload some kind of signed statement or even the audit. But you don't have to. You just want to make sure that that you do indicate that those financial statements are audited and have been approved by a board or senior leadership member in your organization. Moving on to work sample. Got a lot of questions about work samples. So the work sample question was added last to this application form, and that was to, again, give guidance and allow for DCEO to be able to verify and see that your business does what it does. So I want to stress that work samples that you're uploading here these samples are not going to be evaluated based on the artistic quality. If you're wondering what samples should I attach, some guidelines for this would be to include, you have the option to include a link or to include an uploaded document. That could be, it could be a link to your website, it could be a link to your YouTube, it could be a link to your Bandcamp or your SoundCloud. If you're a musician, it could be your website. Those are all options. The idea behind including these links or these other documents is just, again, to also help DCEO see that what you do is what you do and that you're eligible. I would also recommend using any documents, any flyers that you choose to upload. 2019 and moving forward would be best, just to show that you're still in operation. And again, it is okay if you didn't have anything in 2019 or 2020 or 2021 because you were closed or shut down. This is, again, literally meant to just help establish eligibility. So if you are, where I would be strategic with this question is if you are an organization and you find that you are kind of in this gray area, you're an art services organization, or it's just unclear to you which category you might fall into, this is your chance to help DCEO see and establish eligibility for you by showing your mission statement. Have an image or a link to your mission statement, have a link to the programming that you do that does align you to the eligibility categories. So I would use this question in that way, but know that there's no pressure to select your best work and worry about that impacting your eligibility, because that's not what DCEO is using that for. And you'll upload that here. And you can select up to 5 files.
And just to jump in on that a little bit, I know there was some questions about the NAICS codes. We recognize, and it's well known, that the NAICS codes are not great. And there will be those of you who fall in between NAICS codes, or multiple NAICS codes could apply to your business, or no NAICS codes seem to apply to your business. So just know you can only choose one NAICS code, but just know that that's not, DCEO is aware of the imperfections in that. And so this work sample is another opportunity to kind of define what your business is and show what your business is, in addition to whatever the NAICS code is.
Yes, thanks, Casey. Yeah, really this was added to make it easier for all of us to just, because there's concern if I choose the wrong NAICS code, I'm not in the right category, I'm going to just get booted. You will have this question to show that you are, in fact, in the arts sector, or that you fall into one of the eligibility categories. Then you're going to add a brief description. Oh, I will say for here, it says select up to 5 files. You don't have to attach 5 things. They're literally looking for at least just one sample. And then you'll just enter a very brief description reflecting your eligible programming here. And you'll see it's very, very brief. This is my flyer for a dance performance in June. This is the streaming site for an album that I released on March 22nd. Doesn't have to be long and drawn out, but just letting DCEO know what they're looking at. And, there's a limit here of 152 words, so you don't really get the opportunity or a chance to fully maybe tie or explain or connect the dots. But if you can fit that in 152 words and you think it'll help DCEO see and establish your eligibility to one of the categories, then by all means use this opportunity to write that out. Just know it's limited. And then finally, identity verification. There are two ways that that DCEO or this form are verifying identity. One is by taking a photo of the front and back of your driver's license, state ID card, valid, it has to be valid and not expired, and then taking a selfie in real time of yourself and uploading both. The other option is to answer these questions using this, what's called a knowledge-based authentication, or KBA. And what that is it'll populate questions about addresses you've lived at, or what was the make and model of your vehicle from 1995. It's meant to, again, like tie your identification to who is applying to this grant. So you have either option. Again, if you are a nonprofit, note that and actually let me go down here. So 24A is if you're using this question-based identity verification, you would click proceed. And then if you are choosing photo upload, know that you are going to upload the business owner's ID. So likely if you're sole proprietor, LLC, or whatnot, that'll be your own. But if you're a nonprofit, the instructions are to upload your lead executive or your board chair's identification. So this is where, I added them as a collaborator. They can add it, right? And they can do that. But there, I believe, has been issue with even submitting this application because the original form wasn't made in their name. Again, this is where if you run into that issue, and I'm just letting you know up front, so you don't get all the way down to this form and you've already answered all these questions. If you are a nonprofit rep, you may want to consider creating that submittable account in your lead executive, your CEO, your ED, or your board chair's name, and then adding yourself as a collaborator to answer all these questions. And then when you get to this question about uploading ID, they can upload their ID, you can upload their ID, but hopefully that prevents any issue with actually submitting the form, because that has been something that's surfaced for folks. Hopefully that's clear. And then finally, demographic information. And you'll see that the demographic information is specific, is very specific to the business owner or lead executive. And so you'll answer those questions. If you click I decline to answer, that will not impact your eligibility. This is just collecting information to know who's applying. And then finally, the questions, how did I hear about this opportunity? Your website that you might have heard it from, answer those, leave it blank if you wish. And then there's the list of certifications that you'll read. And when you're signing off on this, or if you're the one, this is where it gets a little like, if you are the one that's applying, and if you're a nonprofit, you can still sign, as I understand, on as long as you're authorized to sign and certify, as an authorized representative of that nonprofit. Otherwise, obviously, your ED or your board chair can sign as well. And that will be an electronic signature that's going to be via the entry of your name, title, contact number, and information here. You also have the option to provide a secondary name, contact, and email address there. And then clicking the box that you authorize that person who you provide to talk about the application. Then from here, note again, you can save your draft, but once you click the apply button and you submit, you are unable to edit or make any modifications to your application. The only option you would have is to withdraw your application, and then it would get pulled out, and then you would have to redo the application. You can't make edits, but you can withdraw and redo. So not a first come, first serve grant. So I just highly recommend, if you have any questions or hesitations about your application, save your draft, come to the help desk, we'll help you out, and then you can submit. And with that, opened, I mean, it's 1:02, we're at time, but for those who, I don't know how we want to do this, want to respect folks' time.
So Sasha, we've actually been jumping in and putting a lot of written answers in the Q&A. So a lot of these questions have been answered. I do think, or have answers on them. For some of the more specific questions, y'all, it's better to go through the help desk because some of this, we just need more information to be able to give you guidance. So a little more information about how you're structured, how you've been operating, how you've been filing your taxes, all of that good stuff. I've seen a couple comments around, especially sole proprietors or folks who have started LLCs or have recently become, changed their business entity into a nonprofit. Come into the help desk. We also highly recommend, if you feel like you may not have been filing your taxes correctly, if you know there's a year in here that you haven't filed your taxes yet, right now is tax season, so tax accountants are pretty busy, but highly recommend trying to get in the door with a tax accountant, getting an accountant to help you, even if you're coming through the help desk. That way, if we look at it and we say like, ooh, actually, you need to file an amendment, you're able to do that. Since the window's so short, you only have 4 weeks, you'll have to be prepared to file that amendment really quickly. If it comes to that, if your taxes are messy for 2019, 2020, or 2021. And look, y'all, no judgment. We have all been there. Well, maybe not all of us, but many of us have been there with messy taxes or, misplaced financial documents. So please reach out to the help desk. Seriously, no judgment. We'll get you the help that you need, and hopefully you'll still be able to apply for this money. The help desk link is in the chat. You can also find it by going to artsalliance.org and navigating to our creative recovery page. That link is also in the chat. I know we just keep saying help desk, help desk, help desk, but it really is the best way for us to make sure that we're with you through that process, that your email's not getting lost in an inbox, that we make sure that you're actually getting the answers that you need. So please, please, please utilize that resource. I also threw links in there for our One State Conference on April 24th, 25th. Registration ends next Monday. So if you want to come hang out with us in Springfield, advocate for money for the arts, come see some really awesome sessions and performances, and party at the governor's mansion. Hello. Register at artsalliance.org. Thank you all so much. And we will be sending out a recording of this webinar. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, everyone.